Today we're going to be sound deadening a trunk or a boot of a car. In this case it's an BMW E39 540i. The process is going to be pretty much the same for any sedan, apart from taking apart the interior trims and all that kind of stuff. Well, not the interior, but like the boot carpets and the trims and things like that. So let's open the boot and have a look at what we've got to work with. So this boot is reasonably easy to take apart. This part's probably the worst up here. What I need to do is I'm going to get this out and I'm going to sound deaden all beneath this carpet here. And then also got the floor to do. I'm going to do all the way in the spare wheel well, as much of the sides as I can do. Not sure if you can see it in the camera there, probably not, but on the front sides of my boot, so around this area, I'll show you a bit better later. There's a lot of computers and DVD player things and stuff that are part of the car in this section here, so I'm not really going to be able to sound deaden behind that. The car does have its own kind of baffling behind there, so I don't think that's going to be too much of a problem. I'm just going to sound deaden as much as I can right here. So one little problem with this car is that the boot skin, so the metal on top of the boot, it seems to flex a lot, and I think that's a common problem with E39s because I did watch a video not too long ago. It was called Shit E39 Owners Say, and they were pressing down on the boot and it was moving up and down. So that's a source of a lot of the rattles in this car from the subwoofer and just in general. So what I'm going to do with this car, this is something you probably won't have to do, but once I get this off, I'm going to actually get some seam sealer. So it's kind of like a glue, and it's made for that. Get some seam sealer and try and glue the skin nicely back down onto the frame so it doesn't vibrate anymore. Once that's done, I'm going to sound deaden the whole top here. I think the sound deaden will probably hold the skin down pretty well by itself, but I don't want to be doing it twice, so I'm going to use the seam sealer, and then I'm going to Dynamap or sound deaden over the top of it. What I'm going to show you now is the things you're going to need to get the job done. Alright, so you don't need too much to get this job done. You obviously need the sound deadening, which I'm using Dynamat. It's supposed to be the best in the world, and so far from what I've seen, it's actually pretty good. I've also got this roller that's used to roll the Dynamat on. You don't really need this, but it is a massive help. So if you can get your hands on one, definitely grab one. You'll need a knife or some sort of scissors to cut the Dynamap to shape. You can probably see here, there's actually an E39. So the car we're working on right now is that one right there. So you can see where they've Dynamated up there with the carpet is and all inside. That's what we're going to be trying to do today. And also you're probably going to need some tools to remove all your boot trim. So probably things like clip removers, screwdrivers, socket set and things like that. I'm just going to show you the Dynamap very quickly. So it comes with this stuff. So that's all it is there. It's like a rubberish feeling mat, and it's got adhesive, so you peel this off to stick it down. But we'll get into that a little bit later. I'm going to start pulling all the stuff out of my boot so I can start removing all the trims in there. And just quickly I'm going to show you what I mean by the boot skin being a little bit loose. You'll probably be able to hear it. And I can actually feel that moving up and down. So that's what I'll be gluing with the seam sealer. I've got that right here. So I'm just going to pop that in my silicone gun and be able to run it up behind the framing up here. So let me get all my stuff out of my boot. I've got to get my subwoofer out and all that kind of stuff. Then we can start removing all the trims.
Now, there's a few reasons why you might want to sound deaden your boot. One is to reduce road noise inside the vehicle, another is to reduce rattles both inside and outside the vehicle, and thirdly, sound deadening can help turn the boot into a nice bass box, meaning that more clean bass will be able to enter the cabin.
Alright, so if you already have a subwoofer and amplifier, you're going to want to remove all that. So what I'm going to do is just remove the ground wire and the power wire and the remote wire. I'm just going to wrap them up really quickly with some tape, just so they don't touch, and then tuck them away somewhere so we can get started. So now what I'm going to do is just tuck all these cables out of the way nicely. And what I'm also going to be doing while I'm sound deadening is I'm going to sound deaden underneath my parcel shelf here, which I'll show you later on when I'm doing it. But yeah, let's keep going. Before I tie down my wires, I'm actually going to pull out the bottom piece of carpet. It's just going to be a bit easier to manage. So you can see there's all this plastic stuff in this car. Your car probably won't have that. I'm not sure if I should Dynamap over the top of that or underneath that. I'm going to have to work that out and we'll see what I end up doing. But what I'm going to do now is just keep removing all the trims in the boot back here, so we've got nothing left in here except for these doors.
Alright, so I've got some of the bottom section already taken apart. I've disconnected my boot light globes just to save battery, and I've got this little LED lamp here. Before I go any further here, I'm actually going to pull all this apart so I can start getting that seam sealer in, so that has time to dry while I'm taking the rest of this apart. So yeah, I'm going to get this off now and then start doing the seam sealing. Alright, so now I've got the whole top section of the boot lid removed. You can probably see there's some gaps around here. The seams are a bit split, so this is what I'm going to be seam sealing up, just all the way around these little gaps. And then we're going to sound deaden the whole back of it. Once that's done, I'm going to put it back together so I don't lose anything, and then we can get started on the bottom half, knowing that the top half's finished. So yeah, what I'm going to do now is use the seam sealer to fill all those little gaps. So one thing I forgot to mention when I was talking about things you'll need for the job, another thing you're going to need is wax and grease remover, or Prep-Sol, or preparation solvent. And all it is just pretty much like a cleaner that'll get all the wax and grease off whatever you're working on. So what I'm going to do is rub all this down with the wax and grease remover. It's just like a chemical, you just put it on a cloth, wipe it on, and that's going to allow my seam sealer to stick properly. But not only that, we're going to use it everywhere we're going to be sticking the Dynamap, because if there's anything, any wax or grease where you're trying to stick the Dynamap, it probably won't stick very well. So I'm going to be using this. I'm going to wipe all this down before I do my seam sealer, and then I can get started seam sealing. Alright, so you can see how much the wax and grease remover actually lifted off the car. It's pretty dirty. What I'm going to do now is start caulking or start seam sealing all around here. Actually, just before I begin the seam sealer, you probably won't have to do this on your car. I'm only doing it on my car because the boot skin's a little bit loose. If yours is loose, use seam sealer. If it's not, you can probably go ahead and just start dynamating from here, but I'm going to need to do this because my boot rattles a lot. Alright, so this is the seam sealer I'm going to be using right here. It can be squirted in with a normal caulking gun. It's the colour black, it doesn't really matter because it is hidden. I would have preferred white or a cream colour, but this is all they had. Like I said, it doesn't matter, the trim is going to cover right over this. Make sure you be careful what kind of adhesives or sealants you use for this kind of thing. This is made for this, it's called a seam sealer. Don't use urethane, because I'm pretty certain urethane, what will do, when it dries, it'll actually suck your panel in. So you'll start seeing little ripples in your boot or whatever panel you're using it on. So make sure it's right for the application. This is seam sealer, so it dries flexible, so it's not going to pull my panel in. So I'm going to start right now, just work my way around like that in every little one of these holes, just anywhere where I think it's rattling, and then we'll be good to go with our Dynamap. Alright, so that stuff's still drying, but you can already hear the difference that it's made. The boot actually sounds a bit more solid now, whereas before it was just like a tinny rattly sound. So gonna wait a bit longer, and then I'm gonna start applying the Dynamat. Now what you gotta remember when you're putting the Dynamat on is you're gonna have like clip holes, screw holes and things like that, so remember to cut those out or punch holes in them after you've finished applying the Dynamat. This section is going to be really hard to do. I'm not a professional in installing Dynamat. This is actually only maybe the second time I've done it, especially in a boot. I don't think I've ever done it in a boot actually, apart from a boot floor. So what I'm going to do is maybe just use little strips and just cover up the big sections, because that's really where it's going to vibrate if anywhere, and then I'll do all the little holes up here. You probably can't see them. Do all the little holes up there. Just, you know, use a pretty big piece to fill in this whole area, and then just, yeah, I'll see how I go. But I know some people probably can cut it perfectly all the way around. And remember, I don't want it hanging past that carpet area that was on here before. So just gonna have to keep it trimmed to somewhere a little in here. But I'll see how we go when we get to that stage. I'm gonna wait about 5-10 minutes more till it's 100% dry, and then I can start applying the Dynamap. Alright, so basically what I ended up doing while I was waiting for the seam sealer to dry is just cutting this onto that, just a little rough shape, so I can stick it on the top of the boot lid a bit easier. I just got to do this bit, that's as long as the piece was, just got to do this part, and hopefully it will go on the boot nicely, and I can trim it up a bit more once it's on the boot. Like I said, don't forget, you're going to have little holes like these, where those screws were and where the clips and stuff were, so you're going to have to make sure you put those holes through the Dynamat once it's installed as well. Alright, so I'm ready to start applying my first part that I cut earlier. Don't forget your roller, it's going to come in handy for this kind of stuff where there's a lot of curves. And what you do with the Dynamat, you just peel the backing off. I'm not going to peel the whole lot off, I'm going to do a little bit at a time and then work my way across. Just going to get it lined up. Remember, we're going to want to punch all these holes out later. Now. Alright, so this section of the boot is a bit of a challenge. So what I'm going to do, I'm stopping here and then I'm going to start my new piece here. Just because I got this strap, got that little screw hole there. But before I do that, I'm going to make sure I find all my holes and punch them through. So what I really hope, I hope the trims go back on, because this does now make the lid a little bit thicker. So I hope the trims go on nicely and the clips clip in still. But I guess I'm going to find out soon. Like I said, going to punch these little holes out where the clips were and everything, and then move on to this side here. And then just continue that all the way up to here. So I've got this half done, this half isn't. Listen to the difference. Way more solid. So I've pushed all my holes in for the clips. I was going to push the holes in for the screws as well, but I'm sure once the panel's on, the screws will find their way in. So I'm ready to do this half and then this. It's pretty messy, I've got to admit, but I think it's going to do the job regardless, and it's going to be covered, so it doesn't have to look pretty. Also, don't forget to pull any wiring through, similar to the clips and the screws. It's looking okay. I wish this was a bit nicer, but I might just patch it up, but it doesn't really matter too much. Dynamat's job is to basically take up the absorption of the whole panel, so if you miss little pieces, it's not really that important. As long as you cover the areas where the holes are, you know, where those vibrations are that we spoke about earlier. What we're doing is we're making these little panels, or these little kind of braces, we're kind of making them one big panel so they stop vibrating. So as long as we've done that, it'll work. It's just really hard to get around stuff like this. Like I said, I'm not a pro at installing Dynamat or anything like that. But now I'm just going to do the back up here, and then we can get stuck into the whole bottom. Alright, I've got to say, I'm actually pretty happy with this. A few little gaps, I just put some over the top of that just to seal that gap. Like I said, you just want it across the majority of the panel. It doesn't matter if you have to patch little parts or you don't even have it there. Let's have a listen to our boot lid. Oh, solid as a rock, man. Compared to before, that is amazing. So like I said, I've made sure my electrical cable's still there. I've punched all the holes out for the clips. Now I've just got to hope that the trim all goes back on. So yeah, wish me luck. Done. Looks awesome. Completely covered. It still looks factory. No one would even know it was in there. Got a solid sounding boot lid now. Seriously sounds like a brick wall. So I'm really happy. Now I'm going to get started and finish the lower half of the boot. The lower half of the boot will be way easier because it's all pretty flat. Hardest part's just stripping all the stuff out. So I'm going to take that plastic flooring out, the carpet or the trims on the sides, and then I'm going to start laying the Dynamat. I'm even going to do it in the spare wheel well as well, all around there. And you can probably see right down here, there is a drain hole, so make sure you poke a hole in your Dynamat for that as well, otherwise your boot could fill with water and you don't want that. So I'm going to strip the rest of this boot and then start laying out Dynamap. Alright, so before I continue, I'm actually going to do some Googling and see what other people have done. I really want to know whether I should Dynamat just straight over the top of this plastic or take it all out and Dynamat the metal underneath. The reason being is because if I do the metal underneath, the plastic's still really loud, vibrating. I don't want to do both because I'm just going to add unnecessary weight. I don't want to completely pull the plastic out because I like the way the boot floor sits. So I'm just going to do some Googling, see what other people have done, if I can find anything. If not, I might just, I don't know. I'm going to do some Googling and I'll get back to you. Alright, so I couldn't find much on the net about what people have done about this, but as I was saying before, I'm not going to be Dynamating in here because it's just mayhem. And behind here has already got some nice foam, so I'm not going to be Dynamating behind any of this or this. Mainly just definitely the spare tyre well, as much of the bottom as I can. I'm going to take this panel off to see what's behind there, but I'm guessing it's already pretty well sound deadened. But
definitely got to do up under here because that's probably the worst area for vibrations. So I'm going to pull some of this, more of this trim out and just see what I've got, see what I'm working with, and then I'll make a decision. Alright, so I've made a little bit of a decision about what I want to do. I think I'm just going to put a few little squares of Dynamat on the plastic. I'm not going to do underneath it because, like I said before, it's pretty solid underneath the plastic, and if I do that and I don't do the plastic, then the plastic's the part that's actually going to vibrate. So I'm just going to put some little sheets over the plastic, especially where the joins are. I don't want to go too stupid. I don't want the car to weigh even more for no reason. So I'm just going to do little squares on top of the plastic. I'm going to do some parts up here, just mainly where the holes are or anything like that. And I'm actually going to do the spare tyre well also. And I think that'll be it. Oh, and you can't see it now, but I did run some. Maybe I can still pull this back. I did run some up behind there as well. Alright guys, so a little change of plans. I've actually ended up just dynamating the whole back section of plastic, so now it's like almost becomes one solid plastic piece, and then it joins into the wheel well here, so kind of just stops that moving a little bit. So if I did underneath the plastic, there would have been no point, because like I said before, the plastic's still going to move around. So that's held the plastic down, it's joined it up a bit better. It's almost like it's one big panel now rather than a panel with a few splits in it. I'm just going to clean up in here and then Dynamat inside the wheel well. And then last but not least, like I said before, a few panels up there I'm going to put. And that's it. Luckily for me and for BMW owners, they're quite well insulated from the factory. So on another car, you might find when you take your carpets off that you'll have your wheel arches here. Mine sit a bit further forward, but it'll be probably just all metal. You'll have no sound deadening or anything like that, but BMW tend to sound deaden their cars very well from factory, so I don't need too much. Main reason for doing the wheel well is for road noise, more so than subwoofer volume or anything like that. So I'm going to clean up in here, get that dynamated, and then I think, then underneath the parcel shaft, and I think I'm pretty much done. Alright, so finally I'm all finished. All at the back there, all down in the well here. Covered most of that plastic. My jack goes here, so I can't cover too much in there or it won't fit again. That's it. So I'm just going to put all my trims back in, and then I'm going to give you like a final rundown on the job, some tips and things like that. And I'll have a listen to my sub and see if it's any better. Alright, so we're all back together. All the trims are back in. Looks the same as it did before, which is really good. So what I'm going to do now is jump in the car, start it up, listen to some music, see if it's made any improvement, and then I'll come back with my little report. So one little quick thing I forgot to mention in my video, make sure you Dynamap behind your license plate, because they're responsible for a lot of vibration. So I'm just going to put this on there now. My car already has some foam behind the number plate, but I'm just going to thicken it up even more with some Dynamat on the actual back of the plate. Then like I said, I'll have a listen and go for a drive and let you know what I think. Alright, so I've just gone for a quick drive. I'm actually pretty impressed. I'm just going to show you the boot now. There's pretty much no vibration whatsoever outside the car, except for the stupid number plate actual frame. So I don't know how I'm going to fix that. Maybe I can get some rubber to go around it or just take them off, but I'll show you the boot now. You'll pretty much hear there's no vibrations. I wish I'd showed you before, because it used to just rattle like crazy, especially when the skin was loose. It was just horrendous. So I'll show you that now. Alright, so now I'm just going to give you my thoughts on the whole thing. So the install's pretty easy. It's going to depend on what kind of car you have. Dynamat isn't cheap. It's a couple $100, few $100 for that extreme pack I got. I actually nearly used it all. And when I did my door speakers, I only used a few small squares. The majority was just in the boot that you've just seen then. So it is expensive. Some good points are, it's definitely killed some road noise. It's definitely amplified the bass inside the car, and it's definitely killed the rattles in the boot. I mean, that seam sealer stuff I put on would have helped. Some bad points are that it's killed a bit of my nice exhaust note that I enjoyed. You can still hear it's just killed it a little bit. The boot lid seems to weigh a lot. Like when I kind of let go of it, it falls very quickly, so that's a bad point. And the third point is, because of that, I've also added more weight to the car, which isn't a good thing. I'm going to use more fuel. It's going to be maybe a tad slower. I don't exactly know how much weight is now in the back, but it'll be considerably heavier. If I was to do the job again, I probably wouldn't do the whole boot floor like I did and the wheel well. Maybe I'll just put some patches here and there, but I definitely do just mainly under the boot lid. So if your car's not a show car, you're not doing sound competitions or anything like that, you just want to get some rattles out, I'd probably only do the back of the boot lid, like the underneath of the boot lid, and little parts inside your doors and stuff like that. Maybe just don't go crazy with it because it does weigh a bit. But yeah, overall I'm really happy. It's definitely killed some road noise, which is good. Yeah, and there's more bass in the car, which is what I wanted. So, and there's no rattle in the boot apart from the damn number plate frame, so I need to sort that out. But other than that, I'm really happy. Like I said, the install was pretty easy. Depends on what kind of car you have. Definitely buy that roller if you can. I actually wasn't going to buy it because I was like, I don't think I'm going to use it, but it was extremely helpful. The Dynamat is a little bit hard to press in with your hand and stuff, so it's nice to just roll it up all through the grooves and things like that. So overall, I'm really happy with Dynamat. I'm happy with the install, happy with how it sounds and how it's worked out. Like I said, if I was to do it again, I'd probably only do the boot lid and maybe not the whole boot floor, but I'll see how it goes over time. If I don't like it, I might just rip it out of the boot floor, just to get a little bit of an exhaust note back and to bring some weight off the car again, because like I said, the stuff seems to be pretty heavy. And yeah, that's it. I'm happy. Hope you enjoyed, hope it helped you in some way. If you have any questions about the install or the Dynamat in general, just let me know in the comments below. I'm always happy to help. And I'll see you soon. Thanks very much for watching.